All right. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. It is March 28th, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Scott with the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. Most of you probably know that, maybe some that don't. Joining me tonight, a friend I've known for several years in the Whiskey Tube community, Bill, and he has a channel called the Whiskey Dictionary or Whiskey Dick. Bill, go ahead and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your channel, when you started, kind of what's going on in your world.
Sure. First off, thanks for having me. This is awesome. Every chance I get to drink, something from these guys is a pleasure. so, so the channel, so the Whiskey Dictionary, I would suspect that most people watching this probably have at least seen my stuff. Hopefully you like it. I've been on YouTube for a little over 7 years, started in 2015, and I pretty much do every type of whiskey. I like to say I'm an equal opportunity imbiber. So I I was very excited when you invited me to come drink this, though, because this is something a little bit different and a little special, especially for SMWS.
Yeah, which is funny with Bart and I, in the Scotch Test Dummies, when we started a little over 8 years ago, we were the Scotch Test Dummies, and we just did Scotch. And for a while, within the first year, we realized we're like, hey, we're in the States, we're surrounded by all these bourbons and everything. This was probably about the time the bourbon boom really starts to kick in.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, bourbon is cheaper than Scotch, so we can throw in an extra show a week. We can do a Scotch on Saturdays. We can do an American whiskey on Wednesdays, and it's cheaper. Well, that's not the case anymore. I mean, you spend more on bourbon now than you do. Scotch is the cheaper option.
A lot of times, for sure. And there's definitely a lot more hidden gems, if you want to call it that, in Scotch, because just people aren't hunting them so much in the States. And the people that are hunting them, there aren't enough of them. So you can usually find something that you're looking for.
Yeah. But I think we're starting to see some bourbon drinkers or people frustrated with the bourbon sales and are starting to move into Scotch because they want to try different things, and they're tired of hunting for and not being able to get, all these good bourbons that are out there. So I think it's a plus for the Scotch community.
I totally agree. Especially, I think there's plenty more room to ramp up the Scotches that are currently out there. And, given I don't necessarily want to see any of the high age statement stuff go away, but I think there's plenty, actually, oddly enough, I think there's a lot of really good no age statement things coming out of Scotland. And they've kind of nailed that demographic. Inexpensive, no age statement that is really still very good. So, but I'm kind of in the same boat as you. When I first started out, a lot of people thought I was a bourbon channel because bourbon was less expensive. I was trying to run the channel on, very little money. So I'd be like, oh yeah, Evan Williams. So let's talk about this for $17. Yeah. So, got to be practical.
Oh yeah. But anyway, yeah, so we're far from the Evan Williams $17 bottle tonight. We've got something on deck here. Bottle. Let me get my little ticker up here. Bill and I will preview for you. B5.5. Relentless Gratification. This is a 4-year-old Tennessee bourbon. Now, before you turn off the channel or turn off the video based on that, you need to hang around because we both have pre-tasted this, and some good tasting notes are coming. That's all I got to say. This is, the name on this one should have been Wow.
Totally agree. I had the same opinion when Scott invited me on here. And I was actually just saying this to him. So Scott was like, hey, Bill, do you want to come be on the channel with me? I was like, absolutely. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, it's going to be like a 23-year-old Scotch. It's going to be 18, maybe even like a 12, but something really good. He's like, it's going to be a 4-year-old bourbon.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. But yeah, totally surprised when I took a sip of this.
Yeah. And no, it's okay. B5.5. So this is the 5th cask from B5 is a bourbon, the 5th distillery we've bought a bourbon from, and it's the 5th cask from that distillery. 4-year-old, new charred barrel, 64.3%. So, and I don't know if you'll get too much of a view on the color or not.
I always like to put it up against my head.
Yeah.
My head
There you
makes a
go.
very good backdrop for the color.
Let me zoom in on you there so we can get
Oh,
that.
yes, there we go.
Yeah, there we
There
go.
we go.
There we go. Look at
There's benefits to being a pasty guy living in my basement.
Yeah. It's let's get into it because I
Sure.
was literally I was blown away.
Absolutely.
Woo! On the nose, deep, rich
Yeah.
cherries, cherry Coke.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You don't want to just stick your nose right in there. You're going to burn your
Yeah.
nostrils.
Oak.
Although it's pretty balanced. I mean, really, it's gonna tame down a little bit as far as nosing.
Yeah. It's for 64.3% though. It doesn't
Yeah.
really, push your nose out of the glass or burn anything like that. There's nice fruits in here, sugars.
Yeah, I'll agree that the new charred oak really did a lot to mellow out the alcohol, vapors. If for lack of a better term, it's not burny. I'm totally with you on the cherry Coke note. I
Yeah.
actually hadn't gotten that, but as soon as you said it, that nails it. For me, it was the only thing that you really get immediately is just how sugary it is. It smells like caramelizing sugar in a pot. It's not just like, oh, a piece of caramel. It's like you're boiling that stuff. It's super good.
Let's see, Vortex 1988 says a 4-year-old. Well, I definitely don't need to run out and get this one. First of all, you don't have to run anywhere. It's available on the website tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. And you will, if you like bourbon, and you would you would regret seriously not ordering this one. It's pretty good. It's good.
Yeah,
so
completely agree. I think you'd do wrong by yourself to make an assumption about what you'd think about this just because it's a bourbon.
Right.
Yeah.
Or a 4-year-old bourbon.
Or a 4-year-old bourbon.
Yeah. So we try to do one American whiskey release a month, roughly. Sometimes it's every other month. I know we did a rye whiskey in February. This was supposed to be January. It was held back. So February, we had the rye whiskey. We've got this month. And I believe there's another American whiskey on deck for April. But I think we're trying to bring more to the table. And there's a lot of interest in our American whiskeys, and they generally are going to sell out pretty quick.
No, it's really good to hear. I think it would be a shame if they put themselves only into Scotch, despite the name. But I think, like, even if they expand to Irish whiskey, especially with some of the new distilleries that are going to be opening and everything, there's going to be some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Over the next years, they'll be able to find something really good, I bet.
Now, also, this did not undergo the Lincoln County process. So,
yep, that fooled me at first too. Not that it smelled that way. I just made assumptions about the bottle. So,
yeah.
All right, we ready to sip?
You bet. Cheers, Bill.
Cheers. Nice to hang out again. It's funny. Trying not to harp too much on this or concentrate too much on this, but going back to that cherry Coke flavor, I swear, just because of the higher ABV, it was like tingling on my tongue, almost like a carbonated soda. I'm totally in my mind, but
there's a little bit of char here. There's kind of a little bit of an earthiness here as well, almost a vegetal, almost like an aftertaste you'll get with some peated whiskeys, where it's kind of like a mud, kind of like earth, soil,
fully on the like on the finish.
Yeah, well, mid palate to into the finish on it. Yeah, but the mouthfeel on this, there is no way blind I would ever think this was a 4-year-old bourbon. I would guess this was a 12 to a 15-year-old bourbon. There is so much cask influence on this whiskey.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. I would probably put it at the 12 personally, but I don't know that I've had a 15 actually. Now that I think about it. So yeah, maybe not, but you're right. Where it's really hitting for me, like you're right, you can taste some of the barrel, but for me, it's more the way that it has smoothed out. It's smoothed like something that has stayed in a barrel for a lot longer than 4 years. It's not astringent like you would expect something this high ABV and this age to be. So
there's kind of like a burnt honeycomb, actually, like you're chewing on some honeycomb that you'd put on the grill and kind of grilled it / smoked it a little bit.
Interesting. Let me see. I always love where the notes go.
Yeah.
It's like, that's never a thing I've ever thought of, but okay. Sure, why not? Let's think. Getting a little hazelnut for me.
Yeah, nutty nuts,
definitely
for sure. Yeah.
Which is interesting.
SMWS Australia is tuning in. And my comments aren't populating in StreamYard here, so I can't highlight anybody.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, something's going on with StreamYard tonight. But SMWS Australia says people forget that the vast majority of bottled bourbon is only 2 to 5 years old, and B5s are insanely tasty. Yes. Now, I do have B5.3, the 14-year-old bourbon that came out last year, maybe. And this one has more on the palate, more punch and depth. I went back and compared, and this one is, because I was like, wow, there's so much more on the palate on this one than there was B5.3.
What's the ABV on the 5.3?
Yeah, it was a little lower, 53.5.
Okay. I always prefer something higher ABV personally. I just, not only because you can play with it, but just it's more my style to like when you were like, yeah, it's 64%. I'm like, he knows me. This is great. So, by the way, so Robbie Robson says, isn't Tennessee bourbon an illegal designation? Absolutely not. So all Tennessee whiskey is bourbon. So it's, it's just more specific than you need to be, I suppose.
It starts as bourbon, but the argument is once it undergoes the Lincoln County process, then it's not a bourbon anymore. It's a Tennessee whiskey.
Right.
So this one has not undergone the Tennessee or the Lincoln County method, and hence the Tennessee bourbon designation here.
I won't harp on it too much, but I did a pretty lengthy video or pretty detailed video of exactly that, and it basically didn't matter. It's like legally, but the zeitgeist of the populace is going to be different than legally, but legally is the only thing that matters.
If you want people to comment on a video, call Tennessee whiskey a bourbon. You'll get a lot of comments.
It's so fun to be wrong occasionally on purpose just to rile people up. I'm just checking out the chat for a sec here. So that's really cool that Australia's on. It must be, what is it? Probably like morning time over there.
They're 12 or 13 hours ahead, so it's either 7 or 8 in the morning, I believe. They're probably. Okay. Well, I'm going in for some water.
Sure.
Give me a couple drops of water on here. There's a little bit of astringency here that would actually make me think this is older as well. Not real bad. Just nice oak influence. There's some darker fruits, some cherries, stewed cherries, cherry coke, brown sugar, honeycomb, little bit of that earthiness like I was talking about. It's a little bit different. I mean, just a hint of it.
I will say, actually, I'm going to taste this in a sec. Adding water, it doesn't always, in this case, I think it doesn't do much favor for the nose. A lot of times it'll open it up or whatever. At least for me, it's less clear on the nose after adding some water. Maybe I added too much. We'll see.
I know I've got so much on my palate still from drinking it neat that
the taste is definitely more. The taste is better for sure.
There's more sweetness on the nose.
Way more sweetness, yeah. And those cherry notes are way more. Actually, this is great. You know how like sometimes, I mean, I guess it's just salivating, but sometimes you drink a whiskey and like you literally just start salivating. Like that's starting to happen now. And I love that. It's like now it just tastes so good. Flintstone Vitamins. Interesting. I'm trying to picture if the chalkiness is a little too much to get past for me.
There's a mineral, kind of a mineralness to this distillery. A lot of people pick up that Flintstone vitamin type note to it.
Hmm.
A lot of times from that charcoal filtering, which didn't happen here.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of barrel char notes here, some hints of smoke, but none of that usual maple charcoal filtering that you would get with this distillery.
Okay.
But the palate, even with water, it's so nice. I mean, there's so much depth on this thing, and it just keeps going. It's like the gift that just keeps on giving, Clark.
I just love high ABV, heavy oaked bourbons.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could just say, so by the way, I don't know if you told people, so this one's called Relentless Gratification, which that just sounds nice. I love the names they come up with.
The tasty notes on the bottle are a dark and menacing mix of treacle and prunes with endless nutty delights, joyous fruits, and a wondrous surprise around every corner. Indeed.
Treacle is an interesting note here because, I typically just pretty much equate it to a heavier sugared, I mean, it's like molasses, right? Or leftovers from molasses. But given how sugary this is, I think treacle is a good call. Prunes, I haven't really gotten that, but I can see what they're talking about. I also would trust their tasting notes over my own. So
there are some darker notes. I said cherries earlier, and I was trying to think of what else I was getting, and I couldn't really think there. I mean, there's some darker notes in there with it, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would pin prunes, but there's definitely more going on here.
Yeah, because I was considering raisins for a little bit, which tend to be pretty close. And I wasn't picking out raisins either. Like there's a list of fruits I usually go through in my head when I'm tasting a whiskey, and just I don't know. I wouldn't put prunes, but maybe. I mean, this also I've only had this for a couple of days. Maybe it'll open up a bit. Endless nutty delights. So that's cool. Yeah, the hazelnut's definitely sticking around even after the water for me.
Yeah, I could go with raisins and maybe even golden raisins.
I would be with you on the golden raisins. Actually, I think that's a good call.
It's not quite as dark as raisins. Little sweeter, little lighter.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I feel like I'm starting to realize I need to expand my repertoire of I don't know how else to say this. I need to have like cashews and pecans and walnuts and a bunch of other types of nuts in order to refresh my memory of what they taste like. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, does this taste like pecans? But no, I think it's like a maybe, but like I'm leaning towards cashews too a little bit. But I exactly like I can't quite pin what a cashew tastes like because I don't think I've had one in like a year.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's like me. Sometimes I may get like I'm saying, there's some darker fruit, darker sweetness in here, but I can't quite tell what it is. I mean, sometimes you get it. And same with nuttiness. Sometimes you're like, there is a nuttiness here, but I can't quite pin down what kind of nut it is,
Right.
So if you can. Sometimes it's an almond, sometimes, macadamias or,
macadamia is definitely one that'll stick out for me as well.
Peanut is
peanuts for sure.
Yeah. You can always tell the peanut.
Right. So I'm curious, just because we've got people in the chat. Is anybody drinking SMWS? And if so, what is the name of the bottle that you're drinking? It's just always fun to see all the fun names that they have. They've got some very creative writers over there.
I see Lou Grant, Vortex 1988, SMWS Australia, Lido Cortez, Robbie Robson, Kilco, Whiskey Musings is tuning in.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Clary. I think I said Robbie Robson. Stewart of Butte.
So it looks like Mark Tekvorian is only about a half hour from me. He's in Andover, Mass.
Oh.
He's pretty close. So motion capture tree. All right. Deep Soul tonight. Oh, I think it's just a Deep Soul. Cool.
That's a good one. That's the name of one of our whiskeys. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going in. I'm adding another little second.
I'm going to pour another bit here so I can fiddle with it some more.
4 or 5 drops. So anybody that's watching as well, this is the inaugural edition from my new set, a secondary set that I set up with the whiskey barrel here. I still have the other set in the office with the desk, but I just kind of wanted to switch things up a little bit and kind of bring a different viewpoint. And yeah, we'll see.
Hard to complain about that viewpoint. That's a heck of a viewpoint. Look at all this beautiful stuff I have.
Like if Bart is over though, because I'm thinking, sometimes I'll be standing up, with the barrel doing things, and sometimes not. But if I got Bart here, he's so tall, I don't know if I'll be able to get the camera back far enough to get him in.
I have that problem too. My ceiling is probably only about 3 inches over my head when I stand up. So
yeah, 'cause you're 6'4" or 6'5", aren't you?
Yeah, 6'3", but yeah, exactly. And we have a drop ceiling in this room. So
Stephen Jones is drinking Phenomenal 53.386. That's a good one. Ooh. And Robert G 9.173.
Hell, time for a dram. I hope you're feeling better. It was really only bad for about a day, at least for me. Although Scott, I know you had it much worse. So
yeah, I've still got long-term effects. I think my smell is back, but I have smell distortion. There's still things that don't smell anything like they should.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah, but that was October of 2020.
Yeah,
when I got COVID, and so that's what 15, 16 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got this persistent cough that hasn't gone away. I had it in like January, and it's just, I don't know, probably 20 times a day. I'm just, that's it. But anyway, so
YouTube just heard me say COVID. They're flagging this video.
Right, I know. Motion capture tree is 7.258. So does that mean, 7.258, does that mean it's the 258th cask, or is that 7.2.58?
Nope. That's the 258th cask from distillery number 7.
Yikes.
I think, though, if you look up there, 53.386, I think that's the highest. That's an Isla. And I think that's the highest cask count that we have going is from that distillery.
I have 2 other bottles of SMWS. I have it's like Float Like a Butterfly, I think was one of them. It was from a few years ago, and I don't recall the name of the other one, but I should have been more bold with my choices. Both of them are very good, but they're both like fruity or light or easy. I think it was like an 8-year-old Speyside is one of them, and then the other one, I forget what it, maybe like a 12-year-old Speyside. But boy, I should have just gotten an Isla of some sort, something heavy peat. That would have been nice.
This has taken water very well. I've added the first round I added 4 or 5 drops just because it's so high ABV, and now I just added another 4 or 5 drops, and it's gotten better. This one is opening up. There's still more of those fruits starting to show, more fruitiness, more oak, more char, a little bit more astringent. It's still no way blind would I ever think this was a 4-year-old bourbon.
I just poured a ton of water in here I'm thinking I wanted to reduce it down to something closer to like 30% just to see what that does. Also my hand was kind of slipped, but I can make it seem like I did it on purpose.
Stewart of Butte is drinking a 13-year-old bottled in bond that he has from Distillery B5, and we reviewed it was a single barrel 15-year-old that was just phenomenal as well. It was delicious, and I mean it was from Texas, a big liquor chain down there.
Okay.
But and it was, I mean, I think it was like $70, $75 for a 15-year-old single barrel.
That's appropriately priced, if not cheap.
It was like 52 or 53% ABV, and it was gorgeous. It was a great whiskey.
Yeah. It's funny. My brain still hasn't caught up to what bourbon prices actually have gone to. Like when you say that and you're like $70 for a 15-year, I was like, that seems right. But no, like if that was on a shelf, it'd be like twice that price.
To me, that's a really good price. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, totally. It absolutely is. My brain hasn't caught up with bourbon stupidity yet with the prices.
I wouldn't say stupidity. I would say over ambition. How's that?
Yeah, sure. Confusion of supply and demand.
Yeah, that's another point.
Yes.
So just like making this second set, I had to go buy some new 8-foot 2x12s.
Right.
Those things have doubled in cost from
that still hasn't gotten better.
last summer.
Yeah. It's crazy that still hasn't gotten better. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, so you might notice a little bit of a similarity between Scott's set and mine. I basically copied his tutorial of how to do these bars. And then I ad-libbed a little bit, but for the most part, I copied it completely what he did. Just stained it a different color because I like the blue and the orange. And yeah, it was super helpful. It's funny because you made that video and it was just so out of nowhere. And I remember watching that and be like, I'm saving this because I'm gonna want this someday. So
yep.
Sat in my watch later for like 2 years.
That one. So that's on, that's on the Scotch Test Dummies channel, how to build whiskey shelves. And there's 2 parts. Anybody that's watching, if you go watch it, the first one I did a small section, and within 6 to 8 months I had to expand on it. So I came back and I did a second one and kind of switched some things up, did some variation, which is what the second video was about. But we've got a lot of good content, a lot of comments and good views on those. But yeah, and they're so easy. They're easy to build, but they're also easy to expand on, and they're easy to take down and move and then re-put up.
I bet. Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
One thing I did I wouldn't do again is I cleaned them. I cleaned the pipes, which they have that oil on there for a reason.
Yeah.
So Big Ed has a question here, which I'm not qualified to answer, but maybe you have some help for him. So he says he's a new member and he's still deciding what to order first.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's going to vary, but do you have any general feedback for people?
That's going to depend on where your palate lies, how experienced you are, what you've had in the past. Now, I will tell you, so last week, we had a free shipping promotion, and a lot of people took advantage of that, which is good. The bad part is the in stock stuff took a hit.
Oh yeah.
So we're a lot lower now than we were 2 weeks ago. Next week we will have a new outturn coming. Ben and I next Monday night will be previewing the April outturn. If you don't see anything on the website right now, just wait. Next week will be the April outturn will be hitting. So I don't have any other specifics for you on what'll be coming out next week, but this is a great one. Tomorrow, 1 Eastern. Honestly, it'll be one of the best bourbons you've ever had.
For sure. Yeah. This one is, it's just awesome. I was telling Scott, I had to stop myself drinking this the other night. I had 3 pours before I even realized it. I was just sitting there watching TV and I was like, and then I was like, I need to make sure there's some of this left in the bottle for like 3 days from now when we have this video call.
This is even after 2 rounds of water. I'm just going to add a few more drops here and see, because it's gotten so much better. It was good, neat, strong, powerful punch, and water is really letting it open up and just letting it, like a peacock, spread its feathers and fly.
Always a way with words. So I will say, anybody who's having this, might be watching this in the future, so definitely, first off, you're going to drink it over a few nights, so you can do whatever you want, but I would suggest have it, straight from the bottle first. You might burn your palate out a little bit, but it's truly amazing that way. And then if you want to water it down afterwards, or even the next night, to see if you get different notes, you get all the time in the world. You should do exactly that. But definitely have it out of the bottle, because it's really good.
Yeah, no, I tell you, 64.3% is pretty high. Even if you don't like high strength whiskeys, try it. Like Bill said, try it. Just remember, just take even a smaller sip than what you're used to. Even this one, neat. I'm taking really just such a small, sip/sample of it to kind of see, let it get on your palate and let your palate kind of get used to that punch that's coming as well.
Yep.
But yeah, and then feel free to add water. Mark Gillespie, when I had him on for the March mid-month outturn, and he was telling me a lot of times with his tastings, he will start people with watered down whiskey at like 20 or 30%. And then he gives it to them at 20, 30% ABV. And then, because most of the time that's not too strong for anybody, there's no burn.
Right.
It lets him taste the whiskey, and then he'll start increasing the ABV for him after he starts it low, which was a good concept.
That is a good concept, especially
Yeah.
with people that don't drink as frequently as we probably do, and maybe it'll hit them a little harder.
Yeah.
So, you really can only taste a few whiskeys before you're kind of blowing out your palate for the night, especially if you're having a high ABV. So that's a really smart move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How often do you guys have outturns?
So we're going to do, outturns. So that's our terminology for our big whiskey releases. We've got one at the first of the month. Generally, you're looking at 10 to 12, 10 to 15 casks at the first of the month. And then mid-month, we do a smaller release, 4 to 8 bottles, somewhere in that range usually. So now, like this month, we did a distillery dive. In addition to those two, we did the regular outturn, we did the mid-month outturn, we did a 3-bottle distillery dive where we had 3 different casks from one distillery.
Oh, that's cool.
And now this one. So I mean, so technically this month we've had 4, releases.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was going to say, I was trying to think. I'm like, I think you did a lot this month.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I wasn't crazy, but I was also trying to remember. I'm like, maybe they do it every week, or so.
I mean, it just kind of depends. And then, Jenna had it wasn't a whiskey release, but she did a special Society Stories edition the other night with whiskey and bonbons. She had also hosted a whiskey and charcuterie.
Oh, that's
and a whiskey and cheese society story as well. So throw those in. Yeah.
Now, I suspect anybody who's watching this channel is probably very familiar with whiskeys in general, but something I love about the high ABV whiskeys too is that they're good for towards the end of the night, because if you start off on something that's 40, 45, 46%, and then you end on 64, you're still going to be tasting the 64. Whereas if you go the opposite way, you probably are not going to be tasting the 40% at the end of the night. It's kind of like drinking a peated scotch at the end of the night. You don't do it first, unless you're sticking peated, of course.
Shout out, thanks to Big Ed. Been watching Scott's reviews, he says.
Oh, nice.
Current Scotch bottles are Speyside. So yeah, if you like Speyside, a lot of the sweet, fruity, and mellow, maybe the spicy and sweet, and then we'll depend on if you've had anything heavily sherried or not. A lot of our deep, rich, and dried fruits will be from the Speyside or Highlands region. I mean, that's definitely a different profile that I think most enjoy, but I don't know that everybody does.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of sherried Scotch for sure. Just it's awesome. Yeah, most of them anyway. I can't think of one I haven't liked, actually, come to think of it. There's definitely been ones where I've like, I wish this had more, but sherry's a really good pairing with whiskey. Let's see.
I got my second computer set up here to the side, so I had to...
Yeah. No, I'm doing this. I'm checking out the chat, just seeing what's going on.
I don't know why StreamYard isn't populating the chat for us.
I know, that's annoying.
I apologize to everybody. StreamYard's not cooperating tonight. Normally, I would have highlighted these comments for everybody.
Yeah, that's all right. So what do you have a preference from this most recent outturn, Scott?
We can't. We
You're
can't
not allowed
confirm nor deny any particular favorites.
Okay, that's fair enough. So all of them, got it. Well, I've had one from this outturn, so I can tell you that I have a favorite.
Yeah, which one?
This guy.
Oh, this one tonight. Yeah.
How much have you had, Scott?
I thought you meant from like the March outturn. Overall.
I know. I'm just kidding with you.
Yeah. No. I agree. This is my favorite of the night right here.
Yeah. Right. Awesome.
All right, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me. I think we've carried on enough about the whiskey. Once again, it'll be available tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time on the website. There are 83 bottles available in the States. I would reckon this one will sell out fairly quick. So have fast fingers.
Yeah. 83 will go real fast.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Scott, for having me on. And, it's actually just really nice to share a drink with you. It's been a while.
Yep.
So,
yep. I know it has been. Well, and we've met up down there in Austin, a couple years, and then I was down there this year, but you weren't able to make the trip.
Yeah, I canceled kind of last minute. Just COVID got like way worse right last minute, and just a bunch of people canceled, but myself included. Unfortunately, I have young kids, so it kind of didn't, But oh well, I'm definitely going this year. So,
all right. Well, Bill, thank you for joining me, and thanks to everybody out there again. B5.5 tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. And remember, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society whiskeys are not for swigging, glugging, or knocking back. Please drink responsibly.
Cheers.
Cheers.